Hey y'all, I'm Mayer Cunningham, the special education boss. If you've ever felt confused, overwhelmed, or just plain frustrated at the 504 IEP table, you are in the right place. Every week, I'm breaking down the rules, the rights, and the realities of special education so you can walk into meetings informed, empowered, and ready to make real change. And whether you're a parent, a teacher, an advocate, a school-based member, or somebody who's just trying to do right by a student, this podcast gives you straight talk, real answers, and tools that you can use immediately. I'm not here to play politics. I'm not here to play sides. I'm here to train people who sit at the table and teach you how to follow the law, ask the right questions, and protect the rights of students. So go ahead and hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change. We're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. Hey guys, welcome. We are in our amazing favorite place doing podcasts with experts in special education. If we haven't met, I'm Mayer Cunningham, special education boss, training everyone that sits at the 504 IEP table to navigate and negotiate successful student outcomes. So I have my new friend, Chana Dixon. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Chana is a superstar leader in special education, and we had the joy of meeting each other. And we are cooking with gas now, helping kiddos, and she is one of the good guys in special education. And so I just had to have her on, and I wanted her to share her expertise. And we're excited to have you. So Chana, you want to tell our viewers what you do, how you got there?
Sure. I'm a special education supervisor. I've been in the field for about 23 years. I have only taught special education. They are my heart and passion. Gen Ed students are great too, but I really like to be with special ed because I really like to see the impact that can be made in growth and development for students. So that has always been my go-to, and I've always loved it.
Yeah. So that's kind of unusual, right? That somebody would go straight to special education, not starting out general ed?
Right.
And did you have somebody in your history that had challenges at school? There was just an opening on a Thursday and you said, I'll take it.
Actually, when I felt like that I was supposed to teach in that whole college, not college, work, not work, all those things, I probably didn't know the direction until I dove head first, honestly, and was exposed to those situations. And to be really honest, probably thought I couldn't hack it as a gen ed teacher because I don't follow rules really well. And so there was a lot of rules in gen ed, and time management, and special education gave you more of an individualized approach for students. And so that was really who I am. Not everybody can be dealt with the same, and so or taught the same. And so I loved that approach when dealing with students.
Awesome. So Chana and I are going to be working together. Chana has so much wisdom about educators, and at the beginning of June, we're going to be starting the Epic IEP Academy for educators, just for educators, because without exception or exemption, they are the ones that deliver that outcome, that change outcomes, that teach kiddos strategies and see them, celebrate them, and grow them. And so she is going to work with me, and I'm going to work with her, and we're going to be co-captains of the academy. And we just want to have a place for educators. There isn't a place for educators. I thought there was. I thought that you all had on matching outfits, and you were on a team, or you had a campus. So for me, in my mind, that looks like a team, right? And so, over the years, I've had the blessing of training educators. They changed my son's life. But I wanted Chana to speak to a little bit of the need. And I don't mean like I need 10 more minutes from a special ed service provider. I need, different kind of line paper, but really wanted to talk about the need for teachers, the need for resourcing them, and the need for community for them.
So special educators, depending on the school size, oftentimes when you look at special ed versus general ed, they are in minority, right? So if you have even a small school or a large school, you don't have very many special educators that are teaching. You also don't have very many people going into the field. So when you have a school that is set like that, they often are separated. sometimes feeling a little less than your other teachers, because a lot of professional development or even conversations or even school climate for students is geared towards the norm, right? So
Yeah.
they don't get to fit into that form as much as you would think that they get to join that. So they don't get to collaborate like with every other teacher. Ideas and things are often scarce because you might not have somebody else to bounce those off of. You might not get to have those conversations, whereas teachers in a general ed setting could say, you know what, this isn't working this way. How are you teaching this? So they don't have that. And it's really important because special educators often feel left out in a school setting or a district.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day. At the end of the year we have Teacher Appreciation Week, and I'm sure I did it when my kids were in school. I would get the teacher a gift, right? The third grade teacher or his, football coach or his English teacher, and I don't think I ever did that I can remember consistently get a thank you gift or appreciation gift for the countless paras that helped my son, the resource teachers, right? The evaluators, and we should have special education staff appreciation week. But maybe I can just add that into the calendar.
Yeah.
And then often parents don't even know what the para's name is, right?
Right. And so they don't get to engage like a lot of reasons for rules, other disabilities in the classroom and different things that happen in a district, but they don't get to have the conversation with teachers like you would in a gen ed setting. Oftentimes the only time that they talk, right, are IEP meetings. And so when that is intense or it can be stressful so that's the only engagement. So for both sides of the table, right, it's stressful for the parent and it can be stressful for teachers. So there isn't that support for them like you would think, or even them feeling comfortable. How do I tell a parent there are things going on? I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to. So they gauge that, and it's really hard on them just as much. And I don't think people recognize it.
Yeah, and I see in meetings, I can just tell that when we're working through some of the components of an IEP or adjusting the progress or whatever, you can sense, or it's even said, that teachers have this feeling that I'm saying, or the parents saying, you didn't do a good job, or you didn't do your job because the student didn't meet XYZ. And that has never been certainly my intent. These are children, right? With exceptionalities, right? I don't know that we have typical children. I don't even know what that means, but everybody has needs, right?
Right.
And so I've always said, teachers walk on water. The fact that you would take other people's kids all day on purpose and then want to do it again tomorrow, like that's just like if there's a front door to heaven, you guys are front in line. And so I think they're amazing and exceptional, and you have to have a gifting to teach, right? So one thing to go out and train, but to teach and stay with a group of kids for 180 days, that is amazing. And we know, I mean, we really saw it during COVID that because we got what I call the peek over the fence, and you're like, we got to see in their classrooms. And right, I think for teachers, they just do it so naturally. When I'm in a meeting and I'm like, hey, Tandy, can you tell me, like, when you're working with Billy on math, can you describe what you do? And you can see they're like, I help him in math, right? And I think sometimes when we just do stuff, it's who we're called to be. It's hard to describe that in an IEP meeting.
It is, but it also oftentimes in the IEP meeting, when you're evaluating a document, because you're trying to measure the needs of the student, inherently you are measuring what the teacher is doing too, right? So if there's a deficit that isn't being addressed, and you don't want to seem like they're doing something wrong,
Right.
but yet they're also being evaluated by that same document. So it's really hard because maybe they missed something, right? When you're looking at a student, they might be missing a component of something that they need. So you really are evaluating them too. So it's really hard when you don't have those supports of saying, oh, let's look here, or in a way. Oftentimes, I think parents forget sometimes that teachers really do, in part, There is no one that is trying to mess up
Yeah.
often. They go into the field for two reasons. You wanted to impact a life, or there was someone that impacted your life, right? Or the other reason is because someone was not so nice to you and you don't want that to happen to anybody else. So them making that decision is also a matter of the heart to them. So everything that they do, and especially in special ed, everything that you do, every little bit of growth that you see,
Right.
for teachers, it's a matter of the heart, of imparting heart stuff for them. So that's a very different view than what you would think, oh, just teaching math, right? So you want kids to sit in a chair sometimes. You want kids just to be able to function at a table or in an activity or have a little bit of patience. That's a whole different view of growth. It can be versus a math problem.
Right. So when I'm in the meetings, and so the great thing about Chana is I spend a lot of money annually on myself for personal development, to be a better communicator, to be a better resolver. And so what's great about Chana is that for no dollars, she's going to train me and work with me on how to be able to not access information from teachers, but to support them and really finding more clarifying language when I'm in a meeting, because I'm in a conundrum, right? I am looking to identify, is this IEP working? Then let's do more of that. And if it's not, what is it that we fix? And so when I'm in a meeting, I believe almost always that the gap is known by the principal, probably this is what I believe in my head. If I'm wrong, please correct me. That the principal knew about the need and didn't do it, couldn't do it, can't do it this week, right? And so I also know that teachers don't hire people. So even if they wanted to. And so I am trying to spotlight in the document the identified deficit so that I hope it makes Bob the principal or Sandy the principal go, hey, we need to go in there and give Chana some more support. But kind of talk to me about that, how it's a double-edged sword, and
It is.
how that sounds when I do that, and what would be a way to better deliver the identified need of the student while honoring everybody at the table.
So honestly, oftentimes they don't know any of those things.
Okay.
Oftentimes, even administrators, principals, your principals in a building, there's so many students.
Yeah.
They often don't know all the needs, right? So, and when there's a situation or there needs to be more support in a classroom, it's usually much later in the game of the IEP that there's something going on wrong for them to see that they don't preemptively see that. See, we have things like ratio and numbers of when you look at children with disabilities. And so how many students can be in a classroom.
Right.
So when you measure that, you also sometimes just measure the number instead of the need. And so oftentimes, because they're not in there every day, they don't have that. Remember, special education teachers are sitting out here on this island by themselves, not really communicating, not getting to communicate, because you're dealing with the majority, right? Not the minority. And so until you get in those meetings, some things don't even be brought to light. And that's hard. So when you're sitting at the table, I think you thinking that everybody knows, there might be probably nobody that knows, or maybe one, or the teacher has tried to have that conversation, but it's hard because it puts them in a situation of, I want to do what's best for students, but I also know we need to balance costs and things. And is this best? Is it not? Could this hurt? When you think about people being in a special ed, oftentimes it's more harm than good.
Yeah.
It's more harm than good.
Learn dependency.
Yeah. You learn dependency. And honestly, as a teacher, you could be a great teacher, but a terrible manager of adults. So that's a component that they have to deal with. You could teach the lights down, lights out for students, but maybe you don't have the skill level to manage adult beings and get them to do certain things. So that's another component in a special ed classroom that a lot of people don't address. You could oftentimes walk into a classroom and see teachers being little busy bees, right? Rung and ragged, and you might have an aide or a pair just kind of sitting in the corner with a group of kids, not knowing what to do. And so
Right.
those are components of the special ed world that doesn't get addressed like it should. And a lot of it has to do with time. Time is a commodity that teachers do not get enough of, ever.
Right.
It's really hard.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that their work day, we talked about this last night, is not over at 3 or 4. I can't stand when people go, well, you know what? I'm going to tell them I'm paying their check. I was like, I wouldn't do that because it's a little terrible check, right? You're not paying their check. And I know that teachers work all the time because I'll send in a document and just email it at 11:30 at night, and boom, I get an email back because they're working on documents. Because during the day they're teaching. So if you're teaching during the day, you're not working on a 64-page document. I know most teachers don't. I hear there's a teacher's lounge. I don't ever see anybody in it, like literally. So back in the olden days when we went to schools, I never saw anybody in a teacher's lounge, right? And so they don't get time. I think that we talked about that some schools will give them like half of an advisory period to work on paperwork, depending on how many IEPs. Is that something that you've heard about in districts?
Yeah. So you have planning, like you have a structured planning typically in a lunch, and a teacher's lunch is like eat as fast as you can and run to the bathroom. That's
Right.
what a teacher's lunch is. And then you have your own planning, and they are by law supposed to give you that planning. But again, if you have a caseload of 30 students,
Yeah.
that's little to no time for those kinds of things to happen. Even if you had 15, even if you had, the time, you never have enough time. You don't have enough time to get that done. And teachers struggle with that. How can I document everything? How can I get everything? How can I do all that? So when you're in an IEP meeting, you must understand that teachers are chronically thinking about their students. It is not a job for the faint of heart. It is not, they do not do it for the money, but they are chronically thinking. And I would even probably push to say more than their own, to be honest, because you're worried. And oftentimes students with disabilities, struggle with other things, whether it could be social status and economic status and things that they might need and that they can't verbalize, where a kid might come in and say, I'm hungry. Maybe they missed breakfast. Well, we don't know if they did, if they're nonverbal or any of those things. And so their needs look different. And being able to gather a form of communication with those students are really important, but you're just dealing with different things. And so teachers in the special ed world, I can't stress enough, chronically think about their students. How can I get better? How can I reach them? How can this work? How can I change the environment? How they're chronically thinking of ideas, lots of sleepless nights, lots of paper writing when you should be at home with your own or having dinner with your own.
Right.
And so when you hear things like they love their students, that is true. When they think about the kids that they serve, they own the kids that they serve, and they take very much pride in that. And I think that's devalued more than what people realize.
Yeah. When you were talking about that, I only can imagine what happens during a school day. So when you say you have a planning period, so Miss Smith, the 4th grade math teacher, is there a planning period location in a bunker where it's soft lighting? No, it just means she's sitting at her desk, right?
Yeah. So usually what happened, right, they're sitting in the rooms. So if you were a general education teacher, your kids are usually in a location that for them to go to a location that people aren't bothering you, right? And
So like
especially
specials or recess or something like that.
That's right. So with special education, you're never off the clock.
Yeah, you
right?
can't just go, oh, this is my planning time. I'm sorry that you're having a meltdown. You
I'm
could
sorry.
come back at 12:25.
That's right.
They were going to address it right then.
That is exactly right. And so everything, it's never just a time set aside for you to do that. So you're always, even though they could have the best intents
Yeah.
and even place, yeah,
How many times a day, Tana, do you have a minute for a phone call?
right,
Allergic to say that to people at schools. No, I don't. But I do have 30 minutes for you to talk to me. Right?
right. Yeah. And so that's chronic. That's a chronic situation. Somebody's had an accident, somebody's gotten hurt, somebody needs you. We can't get them, to walk down the hall, but they'll walk down the hall for you. So
Right.
those are all the things that are happening in classrooms that they never get rest. When I was teaching, oftentimes I would say to my own kids that I would come home and say, I need 30 minutes. Don't say my name.
Yeah.
Because you just mentally, if you didn't come home exhausted, you were exhausted. I mean, it's a song and dance from the minute that you walk through the door for
Yeah.
them. There is no rest in that.
So, kind of going back to the question or statement, when I'm in a meeting, there's Billy's not doing good in math. I see that Cindy Smith is the math teacher. She's the only teacher in the room, right? And he has an IEP goal for behavior. He doesn't necessarily have a math class. So, how do I say to Mr. Johnson, in my gentle way that I'm working on, with the least amount of, shrapnel, because there's no perfect way to say it because people have opinions about everybody, right? How to identify the need without, because I've had teachers tell me, well, because about 75% of people I train are educators. Well, after you left, they called us into the office, or I'll even see it in front of me, which they shouldn't do in front of me. They're like, y'all all stay after the meeting. And I'm like, that wasn't my intent. Like, what is he?
In trouble?
You just tell he's going to dress them down, or she like what?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't know if school-based members have soft skills training or management training, but so it's a double-edged sword. So if you could say it optimally, where it still brings about change, and I haven't made the teacher in her mind, right? Perception is real, whether it's real or perceived. That I'm not saying she didn't do her job, or I'm not getting her in trouble when I leave. How do you do that?
I think that when you're looking at the event and say they're falling short in an area, I think focusing on the area, not intent of how, is really important. So not so much how you're delivering instruction, or just can you walk it through what that looks like for me? And so sometimes teachers get really like, what do you mean? I'm just teaching, right? I don't,
They literally, how do you teach? She goes, I teach math. I don't know how to. And I think they just do it like it's who they were meant to be.
Yeah. And so, right. They do it. It's second nature. It's a language to them. But I think in let's just say it's math, in those situations, it might have to be, can you show me how I would need to learn that skill? And so that's a different way of thinking. Show me how I would need to learn.
Oh, that's good.
And so, because each one of them will need shown differently. So if you're addressing a certain student, right, show me how they need to learn that skill. Show me that. And so, and they can be using cues that you didn't even know about, right? So even if a parent is doing work at home or helping do stuff, there's cue words that we give students to help them learn. And sharing those with people at the table is really important, because then you can do it across environments of things. We often teach kids cue words, of how we get them to do things, whether it's counting down, whether it's so teaching the parents those kinds of skills, that's what we're doing. Motion into movement of learning. Those are big things for special ed. Teaching them that. It's really important. So I would just address it that way. Not so much of, okay, he's not learning the skill, so what are we doing? That's a little different approach than saying, show me, teach me how to teach me how to teach this skill. And I think that they would be able to handle that a little differently and be able to address, because that's the second language for them.
Right. And when we get into crazy complex phrases like specially designed instruction, I was in a meeting today, and I said to the LSSP, the licensed specialist in school psychology, she'd written a goal. And for me, it didn't have any SDI in it, right? And which is the same thing as special education. And so I said, what is the specially designed instruction that you'll teach him during counseling I think I said during your sessions. And she said counseling as a related service. Like, she wasn't kidding. Like, that's the thing. That's what she does. It's who she is. Right.
Right.
So I'm going to need you to make me, like, I think you guys put it on key rings and laminate it. There would be like really good sentence stem starters or conversation starters or need address starters, because I don't think advocates, for the most part, or parents are going in there going, I can't wait to mess this up. Right. We're all emotional in an IEP meeting, if for no other reason that we're having to say out loud, Billy is not equivalent. Right. I mean, even if we were all best friends, we still have to say it so that we can grow it. Right.
Right.
And so, you were able to show me on my videos that it sounded very different than what I thought I was communicating. Right. So, there's one person on the earth I cannot see and will never be able to see, and that's me. And so, until my son had a disability, I was raising little Karens, right? We're going to get up, roll out, and just, that's what we do as parents, right? We're going to have a little UT Longhorn fan, or, that we dress them like the schools we went to. And so I'm so thankful for the journey that I walked through with James. I'm also not ever going to say, like some people, if I had to do it all over again, I would. I'm not saying that. Right.
Right. It's hard.
But, I want to be able, first for myself, right? You got to choke down the sermon before you can share it. How can I be different in meetings so that I'm modeling that? And then at some point I can serve people at the table and do better, because I don't want teachers to, it's not about whether they like me or not, but I don't want them to think like I'm out to get them, or I'm just there to make it a problem. And so really delicate balance, right? So I want to have that language to use better in a meeting, because without teachers, without my son from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, they changed my life. They were my respite. I knew that at this time during the day, James was going to have what he needed. He was going to have structure. I live in a house. I don't know where you guys live, but I don't know any houses that are structured because they're full of people, right? Consistency. And there was no doubt that that is where you literally could see the change, right? And they were everything to me. That, remember my first IEP meeting, I was just waiting to ask my questions, which is what most people are as a parent. And they were like, Miss Mayer at the time, do you have any questions? And I said, he has really bad pica. If he eats something in the room or breaks it, are y'all going to kick him out? No, I wasn't joking, but in my mind, the only framework I had was from when I went to school, right? If you broke something, your mom and dad have to pay for it. And they went, no. I was like, all right, where do I sign? Because I knew I had no skills to raise a child with a disability. And based upon how I got here in this world, and I always felt like I was a bad mother because my mother left me at the babysitter when I was 8 months old. Probably something I said. And so, you're kind of always overcoming that. So in my mind, I wasn't surprised that I didn't feel like a good mother or that I was doing good with my child. So I knew that I could trust them with James implicitly, and was so grateful that they went to school to serve kiddos, whatever their needs are. And, thinking back last couple of nights when we talked, Miss Borman, she was the best, the best. When I thought I was going to make it and live through it, I remember she called me and she said, and they called a lot. James was a lot of opportunities to grow. And she goes, there's something I have to tell you. This was in the olden days before, electricity was created. And I said, yes. She goes, well, it's bad news, but it's good news. I said, okay. And it's a special needs parent. There's no bad news, good news, right? And she said, I want you to know I've already addressed it with James. He's in fifth grade at this point, but he has been signing his daily folder as you. And then as soon as I'm about to apologize, because that's all we do as parents, sorry. She goes, and I'm so proud of him. Because kids that have autism don't have the ability to lie and manipulate. And I was like, he got that from me. I was so proud. And also it tells me I have terrible handwriting. And so that he was reasoning a way to, Miss Borman wants my parents to know, but we're going to usurp that. And then I remember later in that year, she said he doesn't qualify for the program anymore. I was like, but he's going to stay with you because you are good with children. She goes, no, we're going to put him. No. Right. And it was like, I was like, I can't leave you. You speak James, you get James. But looking back, she gets kiddos that have those unique circumstances. Right. And she was the one you're going to be fine. We're going to just push you out of the nest. I'm not. And she was the first person that I didn't feel like, and no teacher ever said it out loud that, oh God, here comes James. Or more importantly, here comes his mother, right? Because all we have as parents is that's unacceptable, right? He's not in a wheelchair. He doesn't have a white cane. He doesn't have a service dog. And for kiddos that have, disabilities that we can theoretically see, or they have equipment, I feel like we give, even if it's obligatory, more compassion to parents. But when you're the parent of a child with a disability 100 years ago, 30 years ago, and he looks like every other 6-year-old and he's not having a good day in public, and people offer their help. I've had men like literally start to take their belt off at church to help me out. Okay. I've had people that I loved and care about tell me on my couch, listen, Karen, if you let me take James home for the weekend, I can stop all that. And the truth is, they believe that, right? And so this was the first point in my life when James arrived and his challenges started at 18 months. This was the first thing in my life that I couldn't control. I like to control. And I really like when people follow my controlling. It's a great combo pack. And it was the second thing in my life that I couldn't write a check for.
Right.
And most of us want to fix our kids, right? We want to just fix them. And so, I always say out of my greatest pain, God birthed my biggest ministry. And he taught me so much that I would have never known because I run through life at Mach speed, right? And if he hadn't been my first child, I don't even think I would have been a C plus parent. And, when you have a kid with exceptionalities, they make do things differently and they make you slow down.
So all the things that you felt, and this is the thing, I think that the component that oftentimes advocates and people at the table miss, all the times that you felt that about James, so did his teachers. So did his teachers. Like they worried about all of those same issues that you worried about, but yet still tried to help hold your hand.
Yeah.
And so when you are in this system, and oftentimes they feel attacked at the IEP table, they feel the exact same thing that you feel.
Yeah.
And so that's so different, I think, than what people perceive that they think who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you the other day described teachers with some generalities, I would have passed a lie detector test and said you were wrong. I think of teachers exactly like me. They are driving the train. They are doing a fighter jet. They are the colonel. They're the COO. They are out there crushing it every day because you literally are all amazing leaders. You're actually paid leaders. And it's much harder to lead children if there was no exceptionality, than adults, right? So I just thought they all thought that they were the shizzle and they were rock stars and that people are high fiving them in the hall and the principal is just out there making it rain and we're having a party for them and a barbecue every month.
No, really great special ed teachers are chronically evaluating themselves and the product they push out chronically. Because again, nothing fits everybody. You
Right.
can't say, here it is, this is what works, right? In the classroom. You can't do that. They are chronically evaluating. They are chronically second guessing themselves. I've said it before, oftentimes what has mattered in the position that I hold, for me, it's just merely showing up. I don't, they think that's the greatest thing ever because, again, they're on this island. They have all these feels, they have all this stuff that they carry just as much as the parent carries, just as much as what they're doing, but they're trying to teach skills at the same time. And so,
Not for one James, there's 12, 20, 90, whatever that is, right?
that's right. And I'm going to tell you, really great special ed teachers that I know that I've been around and encountered, those kids are always ours.
Yeah.
James is always somebody's.
Yeah.
School, like they're, what? That's my kid. Like, is there something wrong? Do I need to help? Like, and it wouldn't matter the grade. Like, you would show up because that you carried that for so long for that student. There was never a time that you didn't.
It's interesting you said that because when I see people, we were very involved in our community. Our kids all went to the same school, same track, three kiddos. I always say I have a child that was in resource, and then I have a child that were two National Honor Society students. And I would like to say, for the record, they all gave me the same amount of gray hair. But I would see all those other people in the community, at church, at the grocery store, and they would always ask, how's James doing now? And it's not that they wouldn't ask about, but they were, they're still pulling for him. And then they're like, when you tell them, they're like, oh, that's so amazing. And I think you and I have talked about this, and I don't know how we do it, but we'll put it on our list of things to do. Like, we measure general ed students without disabilities, their success, right? Here they are at graduation. Here they are with their 15 ribbons. Here they are opening their own real estate company. And we don't have, that I see, like, here's a kiddo that had special ed services in school, right? When I tell people how he's doing ridiculously amazing. He's fine. He's completely recovered. And they're like, he is? Yeah. And how did he get to work today? I guess he took his car because it's a long walk. You don't go with him? No, I have my own work. Like, because in their mind, he's still 8, banging his head on the wall and eating sheetrock, right? So they're in that time, and so he was so sick for so long that we didn't have a 2-year-old. We didn't have a 3-year-old. We didn't have a 4-year-old. We didn't have a 5-year-old. So it's going to take a longer outcome for that because you have to teach longer for those skills. And it's, like, they really care, right? And when you're in the middle of it and they're teaching and you're parenting and we're all lifing, I want to, do better at letting them know through my words and phrases and questions and comments at the meeting that I think that they are RA. I think they are ridiculously amazing.
Yeah, and I think, and I've said this, I think sometimes, you're involved in a lot of media and you're involved in a lot of things. And so when those things are clipped or said, context isn't always there. The whole conversation isn't always there.
The whole conversation. Yeah. And that question might have been from 3 previous questions, right?
Right. And so they get a snippet of those things. You are nose to the ground in a meeting. There's no question about those things. I mean, but that's the role, right? To figure out what's going on. And being able to set some of that aside to understand thoughts, feelings, and where others are at the table at the same, not just the parent. So those are all things to take into consideration. I think that people feel attacked on all sides when you're at the table. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't. A teacher is not immune to that. A teacher is not immune to that. There have been many times in my career that I've walked out of a meeting a mess because you either fight for the student and no one was hearing you, or a mess because you feel like someone just hammered you and you've been working your guts out. So
Yeah.
it's hard. Again, that is an evaluation period. The IEP meeting, even though we're looking at a document and you're evaluating a student, you are evaluating teacher. It is hard for them to separate that,
Right.
to piece that apart. It goes beyond a document. It goes beyond what's there, the words that are on the page. It goes much
Yeah.
farther than that.
Well, I want to be better at it. Will you learn me?
We'll try.
Yeah, it's going to be a minute. I'm definitely going to be an ESY. Kind of as you're describing me, I am, when I say I prep a file, like I take it, like it's very rare that 2 or 3 nights a week that I'm not emotional, that I think I did a bad job, because I thought for years, if I just got the paperwork right, that because the initial thing when I see it is the paperwork's a mess, not because anybody else, because nobody went to school to fill out paperwork. And then as soon as you get a system down, guess what, Chana? We're getting rid of ABC software. Now we're getting a worse software, right? And so I thought if I could, take all this great information from evaluators and teachers and craft it in a document, that's all I needed. And years ago, I started training with some other people about the way that I communicate. And so I just thought the information was king. And so the professional developments that I do are about being a more effective communicator. And it was hard to learn those skills, and I'm still learning them because it's emotional for me in meetings, right? And so, but I want to be better with connecting and communicating what I feel about the teachers in a way that serves them in a meeting that doesn't look goofy and, oh my God, you're so amazing and so contrived. And so just some of the phrases that you've taught me already, it's just a little tilt, right? It's not what you're doing is completely wrong, but tilting it so that they know that it doesn't matter how good the paperwork is. If I don't have you, nothing's going to happen, right?
That's right.
And
right.
So tell me some things that I could work on that would be better.
I mean, we talk all the time, but approaching it just as a humanistic portion, and that it's not so regimented, helps everybody, right? A little bit of understanding goes a long way. Putting yourself in the perspective, their view of a situation, or even the document itself,
right?
It helps. I think that we oftentimes major on the minors and don't get the heart of the situation. And I've said it before, documents are documents, right? They're legally binding. All of those things are true. All that's true. But what's the heart of the matter? What's making this go? What's the gas in the engine? What's going on? And so having those real conversations, getting to have those real conversations now makes the document living and not just a piece of paper. And so that's important.
Yeah. So are there ways? So one of the things that I do in school districts when I do professional development, one of the first questions they ask is how can we better collaborate with the parents, right? That's the ongoing thing. Mm-hmm. And so what I share with them is, for me, it's a much shorter distance from A to B. If you just picked up the phone, like there's no easier way to communicate something completely opposite of what you meant than typing it, right? I could just say, I need a sandwich. Well, you heard, oh, you're a terrible roommate. You can't make me a meal. You don't care if I'm starved. Like it didn't mean, ma'am, it didn't mean any of that, right?
Need a sandwich.
Yeah. So I love to prepare. So do you think it would be helpful if, well, we can't, I mean, the advocate can't do it, but how could I communicate with the educators, even this group email forward that softens the meeting? Because here's the deal. Nobody, I've yet to meet anybody that is excited that I am coming to a school meeting.
Right.
I'm sure that it'll probably be next month. I've never had anybody go, "Oh, this is so exciting," you know.
Right.
And so, because the declaration is, which is not true, but it's been said for years. Oh, Chana's bringing an advocate. She's mad. Which is the only place in the world that you would say, "Hey, Chana got a realtor," and you wouldn't go, "I can't believe she got a realtor." Like, why wouldn't get in your feelings? Chana's getting her transmission done by transmission guy. So, is there a way to communicate that it's not like we're
So
coming over the hill?
well, there's already a level of stress, right? So there's already a level of stress in IEP meetings without an advocate,
Period.
period.
Is there?
Yes. What, a level of stress?
Well, I don't remember because and I got these today, which I'm not going to cry. These are James's files that I had surrendered. Oh, I'm not going to cry. That I had. Surrendered to me when he graduated, but I won't ever read them because it was too hard. It was so hard, and so, but they're mine, so I have them. Uh, One of the reasons I don't want to look at them is because I was a mess in those meetings. Like, I was a mess. And for everybody that sat with me in a meeting, sorry, you know, I just walked through this thing alone. And, I would say probably James's disability was the reason my first husband and I got divorced. Right.
Mhm.
And so anybody that was in that meetings, sorry, I'm doing better now.
So, okay, so think about that. Going through that, and now you add in an advocate who's to the wall, right?
Yeah.
Let's go and blow this wide open. It's not a matter of let's go help. It's a matter of, or see how much they're wrong. How do we help? How do we help? How do we help in the miss? And so, just like you feeling those things, I will say it over and over. The teachers that you entrusted with your own student, with your own James, do you not think that when they were writing the documents, what they felt like, how are they going to take this? How is that going to feel? I hate putting this on paper.
Yeah.
There is none of us that teach that go, gosh, let's write down all the deficits, right? Because it's a document of
This is going to be
deficits.
great. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a document of all the things this kid needs.
Yeah.
We're not making goals to celebrate him.
Yeah.
And so when you see it from that component, it changes you.
Yeah.
It changes you. And on the other side, you know it. I got to sit in a meeting not too long ago, not a meeting, but a parent wanted to sit down and had a parent conversation, off the cuff, not an IEP. Student hasn't been made eligible, but they needed hope, right? So I had a student, my own student, special ed, both boys have had IEPs, and you get to share the success of the other side.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes teachers don't even get to see that. They so, but they don't get to.
Yeah.
So it might not happen for another 6 years, right?
Right.
And so they own the same things. They
Yeah.
have the same feelings. And I just think sometimes when we go in at that high level of stress, high level, we have an advocate. So now they're coming for me. I need you to understand that's the mentality for them. They're coming for me. not how can we fix, or what are the improvements, or are there other strategies, or any of that. That is not how it's approached. It's they're coming for me, who I am, what I do.
Right.
Um, so it's just a different perspective. And I think you have to go back to that place every now and again.
Yeah. I hadn't been at that place in a while. Um, I always say as I'm teaching, when I'm with people and training people, which is my favorite thing to do, being in an IEP meeting is not my favorite thing to do. Having to say the things that
Right.
I'm charged with, I don't just go, oh, I love saying, elementary school denied Bob a free appropriate public education. And I don't go, yeah, I don't even like, I was just training my partners this weekend. I don't like, I know that I have to say it and I'm dreading it in the meeting, right? Because there's no way to go, you can't put a bow on that. So when I am, uh, serving people, which is my heart to serve people, I want to resource teachers um, in a way that they haven't been resourced, right? And so one of those things that I do um, is when I'm in a meeting, I'll say, oh, I'm using 90 years of oral reading fluency. Danielle, are you taking the deliberations? I'm going to send it with a document. And I say, will you please share that with the committee? Because one of the things I've found is, which I was shocked, because you hear about professional development, but they're not, when I think about professional development, that's making me better as an entrepreneur, a business owner, a connector. But
Right.
that's not what professional development means in public school. It's more of an obligatory thing, right?
Yeah. Right. So professional development, there's so many levels of that in a school system.
Okay.
Um, you have only a lot of us have built-in times in the calendar year for teachers for professional development, and in that there's lots of things that you have to accomplish, state laws, all those kinds of things that they have to go over every year, all this stuff. So professional development with IEP training, again, is more of the components of compliance. It's not
Like making sure you didn't miss something.
Yeah, didn't miss an element. Didn't miss, oh, I have to put this in there. Oh, I have to put, oh, they have transportation. Oh, they have that kind of stuff. Oh, there's the parent input. There's the teacher
Okay.
input. So it's a compliance issue that you go over, because those are the things on a state level that gets flagged, right? It's not the document or the heart of the student or all the things that you should put for to explain who the student is. You're just looking at components. You're also looking at the measurement of the things of exactly what you're servicing, right? So that's an important part. So they don't go over oftentimes for professional development. Again, the foundational piece of the heart of the matter. It's component oriented. I need you to do this because this is right. These components have to pass this. You just took the human out of it. You took the human out of it.
Yeah. And so when I see on social media, which you have to know is absolutely true, no matter what you see, is I'll see some guy or some girl in an auditorium um, giving the teachers a talk about how important it is that what they do changes a child's life. But as you and I have been unpacking I don't see them having a seminar of, I'm so thankful for you. It's more of, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. Like, so can't pour from an empty vase. So when do we ever refill teachers in professional development? And I'm sure it occurs somewhere. I do know that at higher levels in a school district, I call them the district officer, admin, or coordinators, or the organizational chart. I know that they're going to trainings because I sit in meetings and I'm out of time. I'm out of time. I'm out of time. I'm out of time. So then I thought one day we send all the math teachers. One day we just load them up in the bus and give them a box lunch. And
Yeah. And so that PD looks more like, if there is PD for them, it's over content. It's not about filling who they are. It's the content they teach. and instructional purposes, which is great. I mean, because you teach, right? So new instructional ways. But a major component of all the things that the teachers do, whether it's de-escalation, and I don't care what you teach right now, behavior or any of those things, you deal with that on a daily basis beyond curriculum content. You deal with behavior, you deal with de-escalation tactics, you deal with climate control situations. Teachers, if they don't go to those things, if they don't invest themselves in those things, it affects everything, right? So there isn't enough feeling of that. We've talked about it before, even with me, a lot of my trainings, when I do trainings, is all that. It's all that. It's all that. How do I pour into a situation or an environment to change it so that they can get the most out of what they're actually teaching? And so teachers are the world's worst of making sure they have what they actually need for themselves to be okay. They deprive themselves oftentimes for that feeling of themselves because they don't have time. I'm doing this, I'm running this, I'm doing that. And so the self-care is not where it should be for teachers within and of themselves. And I think that they deny that so much that it's detrimental and it affects their students, and they oftentimes don't see it. So for PD, for that is a big need, is a big needed thing.
Yeah, so it's like if you're a plumber, you go home, you're not doing your own plumbing, but if they go home and they have children, the job just continues, right?
Right.
There is no break.
Right.
So in your perfect world, what would that look like? What would be exciting, promising, lifting, hopeful, helpful? If you were going to propose a PD for, the Chicago public school system, and I don't know what happens in PD. I know that I've done PDs at schools, and I'm a little bit of a goofball while being a little type A, and I love that. I love being with people, all of that. But I will see the person before me, like slide 492, and then after me, here, like just it's the information dump, and y'all
Right.
here for hours.
No, and they can't do that.
Yeah.
So
are there
training,
people out there crushing it, like lifting teachers like a good undergarment?
I mean, I think there's some, teachers don't get to have access to it like they should. Again, you named it, higher levels go to PDs and they do the trickle down effect. It costs to send everybody to things. I mean, honestly, when you're looking at budgets and you're looking at things, so they manage here and try to get it down here. But you know how it's like just pouring out of a glass. How much can you get down there?
Right.
So when you're the low man on the totem pole, which is special ed, I mean, it just is. And whether people like to hear that or not, you're out on the island by yourself.
Right.
It's not me that's getting it. It's everybody else because it was geared for everybody else, not for me. And so that's really hard. I mean, you have to have the hard conversations of we've got to change the dialogue.
Yeah.
I came into this position saying that over and over for special education, I've got to change the dialogue. I've got to change. I'm tired of seeing terrible things on the news. I'm tired of seeing people that are not equipped or feeling supported. I'm tired of, you got to change the dialogue and have the hard conversations. And it takes people to come to the table to do that. So good teachers, oftentimes good teachers struggle with speaking up, worried, fear. They have all these crazy fears about their job or whatever. You got to speak up. I often say when I'd have a group of kids and they were acting up, and because I always used to say they'd go to gym and something happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. They'd line up and they'd be like, they were terrible today. And you're like, Well, they were great, but when I gave them to you, so I don't know what happened
Must
when
be the environment.
I don't know what happened when I got them back or any of that. And so I would say those things, and everybody laughs because it's true. Like,
Yeah.
so you line it up and they're like, your class, and you're like, they were in gym. What did you do? And so
Low instruction and high volume.
right.
What could
And
go wrong?
nothing.
Yeah.
Unstructured, just run.
Yeah.
So I would always say, listen, fight for your kids. They're yours. Fight
Yeah.
for your kids. Tell them, listen, I used to tell kids all the time, listen, you are mine. And so when you act a fool, guess what? You're still mine. And please
Yeah.
don't act a fool, because I don't want it to be that you're mine and you're acting a fool.
Yeah.
Understand? Because then we have this conversation. No one wants this conversation. And so you just be really real with them about the situations. And, but there's none of that happening. When you say that to teachers, they're like, oh yeah, we can do that. Yeah. Own them. They're yours.
Even when I talked to you a few weeks ago and you were saying, like, I know stuff, but I don't know stuff, right? Um, when you said the professional development is scheduled for certain days as a business owner, I'm like, no, they could just swap out the 10th for the 3rd. Like, that's going to be the PD day. There's no like, oh, we got the Chick-fil-A cow and this mouthy woman from Texas. Yay. Right. We don't. So that is laid out like in July, a district, county, or city has already laid that out. And it's
So, like in our area, they propose a calendar to the state. Like,
okay.
You have to have so many days of instruction. So you have so many days of those instruction, and then you build in your PD in that. And there's only in our area certain times. So it's usually before school, right? Before school. You have a couple after Christmas break, couple
And when you
days
say before school, you mean
before
days
students attend. Mhm. Before students attend.
What happens? Because I just pretend I know, which is one of my gifts. But what happens? I just feel like they have like cookies and cupcakes, and you're putting together gingerbread houses, and
No, ma'am.
you're hugging it out. No,
Nope. I mean, you come into a building. So if it's PD day, you come into a building, you have like a day to get your classroom ready, because in the middle of the summer, what happens? They wax floors, they tear everything off, all the things. So you're rebuilding your whole room again.
okay.
So there's a day for that. Now you've got to start calling parents or get organized and all the things. So you're doing stuff for that. On top of that, for us, we would do trainings online or trainings in person. You have to do, special ed teachers have to make sure their certifications for CPR, restraint, all the things that you have to do legally are up to par. Then plus review everything new, right? Legislatively. So you only have about 3 days to get all that done.
Wow.
Yeah. And then to review anything mid-year, you have maybe a day. And those are scheduled in the calendar. Now, we have other times that are scheduled throughout the calendar, but so say that, like this year, say that it decides to snow nonstop. Guess what gets taken away first?
PD.
Those days. They're giving to the kids for instruction,
Okay.
right? So you give them back for instruction. So the early releases that we have, early release or 2-hour early release or whatever, to do some more in-house trainings, like an in-school training for your teachers, that might go away. This year we've gotten actually 2 extra PD days at the end of the year because of snow. So instead of students have to take, because the state was under so much of emergency, they've given teachers have to stay beyond this to get their contracted days in, but students get to be released typical. So again, those are all things, and it's weather based. It could be any of that, but you only have it so many days. And again, you have to get all that stuff in, and there's no way around it.
Let me ask you a question, because the other question's been asked 100 times, and then everybody surmises why people are leaving. But I want to know why people are staying, and I want to build on that, right?
So I probably have just a little more time, but I will say this in when we're moving in and out of this, people stay because solely because of kids. You don't stay for money. You stay because of the change it creates, the impact. There is for them, but for you, obviously there's a gain in that for you. But when you think about special education, when you think cameras in your rooms, people can right, cameras in your rooms, people can make allegations that might not be true or are true, or just the intents of the stuff that happens in a special education environment. No one chooses to go, sign me up, please. And for those reasons, it is purely the fact that you know you are changing a human. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, for the greater good civilization, right? So in your case, teachers, I am sure, thought for the greater good of James, right?
Yeah.
For the greater good of that, for the greater good, and I said it before, for the greater good for my Luke, for the greater good. When I think about Luke and I think about serving in the service, what? No, like for the greater good of who? Really for us. So if we didn't have those people pouring in, we wouldn't have those. We wouldn't have the Lukes. We wouldn't have the Jameses that are on top of that impacting too.
So when you hear schools are rolling out initiatives, and I just thought working in a school would be the best. I felt like we could get the cafeterias open. There were always donuts in the teacher's lounge. Like I just thought it was fun because they make it fun for kids.
That's right.
Which made me think that they're having fun, right? I mean, elementary school teachers, I'm like, are you always this happy? Yes. Like they're so excited to see these kids, my kids, right? And so how can we work on pouring into that where it's not like something else that they have to learn or, how do we raise up amazing teachers who have some knowledge that what we're saying to them or what comes in a card isn't just obligatory, but you changed my life. So when I say, my mission statement is when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody. It does not say when we get the IEP paperwork right, we get it right for everybody. Mm-hmm. But you could have terrible paperwork and have amazing special ed, right? And vice versa. And so how do we help serve teachers to let them start to have a feeling that I'm good at this, whether my principal told me, whether the crossing guard told me, whether the 4 goofy parents that have sent me 84 text messages in 4 minutes. I mean, I have the same parents, y'all. I have the same parents. While I'm in IEP meetings, they email me and then they text me and then they call me to see if I got the text about the email, right? Yeah. They're in crisis. So how do we begin to build and solidify super amazing rock star educators to stay the course, because it's a course, but to not to just stay, but to feel like they've been successful. If none of those other pieces are coming down the hall from Mr. Garcia, if it's not going to be high-fiving from a teacher, what can I do to help? Hit subscribe, share this with a friend, and you know what? Meet me back here every single week. We're not just talking about change, we're making it. Because when you know better, you do better. And when we get it right for the child, we get it right for everybody.